Director of the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association. On behalf of the FIFA Trinidad and Tobago Normalization Committee and the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association, I would like to welcome all of you today, ladies and gents, to what again will be a very, very informative seminar. We have our guest speaker today, Mr. Dean Whitehouse of Manchester United Academy, and Dean will say a little bit about himself, a little bit more about himself in a little bit. What we're going to ask you guys to do, if possible, is just to keep the bandwidth working properly, is to keep your mics, to keep your video off, and when you all get into the chat room, of course, you guys obviously use your videos, because you're obviously meeting each other for the first. Some of you will meet each other for the first time, so please use the video in the chat rooms. And Dean will talk a little bit more. I want you guys to be as interactive as possible and take the opportunity to participate, because we are here to help each other. So without any further ado, I would like to turn you over to Dean, Mr. Dean Whitehouse, Coach Dean Whitehouse of Manchester United. Dean, welcome.
Thank you very much, Dion. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for having me today. I know you're going through a difficult time over there at the moment, so anything I can do to take your mind off things, I'm looking forward to doing today. So basically, what I think Dion, just to reiterate what Dion said, please don't feel nervous about speaking today or being interactive. I want to make sure that the time that we've got this afternoon in the UK, and I know it's a little bit earlier over there, is used to its full. Yield is going to be, when I've got my presentation, I'm sharing my screen. Yield at times is going to be just randomly just going to different people and asking them their opinion when I ask the question. Please, your face won't be on screen. Just ask the question, answer the question, and interact with me as much as you can. Okay? Happy with that? Right, let's get going. So I'm going to share my screen now, and we'll go from there. Okay, so as Dean introduced me, my name's Dean Whitehouse. I've been a coach at Manchester United now for 20 years. I've been a coach with a team since 2004. So obviously, being a coach since 2004 with a team, I've seen a lot of players come through the academy. From my background, I've played football all my life. I played football to a high standard as a kid. Then I joined the British Army, and I was in the British Army as a physical training instructor for 8 years. I played football for the British Army all over Europe and some places in the world. And when I came out of the British Army, I then played semi-professional football before getting a coaching job at Man United. I've got a master's in science from a place in England called Loughborough University, which is a sports university. And I've got a BA Honours and PGCE, and I'm also a trained lecturer. So when I talk today, I want to discuss talent identification. And to discuss talent identification, I think it's really important to consider, from my point of view, to try and get across some of my experiences about what we look for in a Manchester United player, and what a Manchester United player looks like from the outside. My current role is academy coach at under 12s. And I've seen some of your presentations, so I know you've had coaches talk about our phases in the UK. So that would be in the youth development phase, the first year of the youth development phase. I've worked previously at under 11s in the foundation phase. I've even worked at under 9s. I've worked with youth teams, and I've worked with adult footballers as well. So I like to think I've got an experience right across the spectrum, from the youngest boys and girls right the way through to adult teams. Okay, so if I start with this, and I think it's really important, the world, including Trinidad and Tobago and the rest of the Caribbean, I call it the Caribbean, but I know that's incorrect over the way you pronounce it, but the world loves football, and it's loved all over the world. And because it's loved all over the world, every fan thinks they can spot talent. We all think we know who's a good player. And one of the things when you're in an academy is that people are always telling you they found a player, they found the new Messi, they found the new Ronaldo, they found the new Dwight York. So can we look at this player and bring him to the academy? So everybody thinks they know what talent is. Every fan that watches football thinks they can make better decisions for the team than the manager or the coach. And what's really interesting is that, would I expect to perform complex heart surgery without any qualifications and many hours of experience? Well, the answer is obviously no. Because, it takes years sometimes of getting qualifications. It takes years of watching football, playing football, being around football to probably have a good idea on what you think talent is. And we're going to discuss that today. So one of the things we're going to discuss is the skills required, the knowledge that's required to actually identify talent. And I think that falls nicely with how important is recruitment and, how different it is depending on the age of the player. Because like a doctor would be a specialist, like a pediatrician would specialize with children, a heart surgeon would specialize with, with that part of the anatomy. I think with football coaches, even though football's football, we have to have specialisms with certain age groups and need to recognize that a child, a boy or a girl at a certain age group is completely different than somebody 2-3 years above, which is common sense, but sometimes common sense that's not, not followed. Okay, so if you look at that picture, that's when I had a little bit more hair. I've been there for a long time now, as I've said. But what's really interesting about that picture is you can probably recognize 1 or 2 players. Some of you're probably dying to shout out 1 or 2 players. But what's really interesting is if I go to the man of the moment, appeared on Life, the front cover of Life magazine a few weeks ago, for all he's done for children, his football for Man United, his football for England. So that's Marcus Rashford when he was 11 years of age, 11 or 12 years of age. And some of our boys are very lucky that every year, and we're on there in a couple of weeks, every year we get to play on the hallowed turf at Old Trafford. But in some cases, it may be the only time those boys ever play on that pitch, because they may not stay here next year and they may never get to professional level, or at least professional level with Manchester United. And what's really interesting is if I look at Marcus there and I look at this boy to the left, okay, that boy was the best left winger in England, while he was probably the best right winger in England at the time. Marcus is now an international renowned footballer and getting more famous as time goes on. And this boy's a builder in the Midlands in England that doesn't even kick a ball. And there's different reasons why that happens. And maybe we'll talk about 1 or 2 today. You've got other players there like Axel Tuanzebe. Okay, you've got players who are not playing football anymore. You've got players who are professionals at league clubs, at championship clubs. And one of the great things about working at Man United, most of our players who get to scholarship and above, our productivity rates are brilliant, and our players do become professionals even if they don't play for the first team. And we hear them playing. We see them playing in the championship all the time at Burnley, Blackburn, Derby County today who played. So all the time our players are there and thereabout. Okay. Now, obviously players look different at different ages. So that was me when I had a couple of years with the under-9. So that's an under-9 group, just to give you an idea on what an under-9 group might look like at Man United. And that was playing away indoors at Leeds, playing in their indoor facility. Some of those players are still with us. Okay, they're now under 16s. Some of those players are not. Now, one of the things I'm very lucky to have done at my time at Manchester United is work under Sir Alex Ferguson and some great coaches there, Brian McClare, obviously Paul McGuinness, Warren Joyce, and many others I could mention. Some of is a Fred at United. This guy here on the outside was there when the best was there and some of the Busby Babes. Okay, and obviously you all know who Sir Alex Ferguson is, but there's always been a Fred at Man United to try and keep the historical Fred going, keep a lot of coaches involved. That's Jim Ryan's son, Neil Ryan, who's now the youth team manager. So we try and always keep, even though we have new skilled people coming in, we try and always keep a lot of people who've been at the club a long time, so they know the traditions of the club. Okay, so let's do our first little breakout. So first of all, before we do the breakout, I just want you to
press Wi-Fi on cellular.
I want you to use the chat function. So talent opinions. So I want everybody now to look at that image, and I want you to just consider just for a minute what you see. And I want people now to start putting in the chat what they see. So start typing away in your chat box. What do you see? I'm just going to leave you for a few seconds to think about it. And there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. But just please put in the chat box at the bottom of the screen what you actually see. And it's related to football. So if you're related to football, what do you see? Try and think outside the box. So Yield, we're just going to give it about 30 seconds. And then anything that's coming in the chat, if you'd be kindly enough to just tell me one or two of the comments, please. Anything so far?
We have strength and balance from Jonathan. We have a lot of balance repeating. We have persistence from Mr. Mohammed, determination, upper body strength, balance repeating again, grip,
Good.
composure, determination,
Excellent.
support, effort, and focus. Yeah.
So we've got lots of words there: support, effort, focus, balance, determination, grip. Okay, so most people have gone down the kind of physical line, okay, thinking of physicality. Is there anybody who you've just seen a really weird, different kind of comment? Anything different? Anything football related?
We have one or two members noting that everyone has different talents and some are a bit better to play at different positions.
Excellent.
Better uses of their body. Some are struggling on the same aspect while others are succeeding.
Brilliant. Right, we'll stop at that point. That's what I was looking for. So some are struggling, some are succeeding. They're all at different ages and stages. So when people look at talent, they all see different things. There is no black and white. There's no gray area. It's basically everybody sees different things. We're all unique individuals. So some of you may have seen a wall, a defending wall. You mentioned about someone hanging on, and if you think about stages of development and talent, that could be somebody who's just going through a bad spell, that just a difficult growth, something difficult at home, maybe struggling at that part of the season. Someone's solid, so someone's right in the middle, they're holding on, they're doing really well, they're doing great. Maybe someone half and half, but different stage, different age. And really the relevance of the task is simple. We all see different things. Yeah, so I could be watching a game, and Yield could be watching it with me, and we could watch the same game, and I like number 6 for a certain reason, and Yield won't like number 6 for a different reason. And yet we're watching the same player. So very unique when you look at talent and talent ID. So I want you all now to provide a definition of talent. Okay. So imagine this. If I was an alien and I've just landed in Trinidad or Tobago, and there's a game of soccer going on, and Dion is there as a talent identifier looking for somebody to go into maybe, I don't know, the national under-16s team, and he's looking for that talent. And I say to him, because I'm a really intelligent alien that can speak lots of languages, and I say, Dion, excuse me, what are you doing? And Dion says, I'm identifying talent, I'm a scout, and I'm looking for talent. And my question then is, well, what is talent? So I want you to just think about what is talent. And I just want to use the chat again to put down what you think talent is. Now, there is no correct definition of talent. There's lots of different opinions. So just for a few seconds, write down the first words that come into your mind when you consider talent in football, talent in soccer. I've put nature v nurture there just to maybe think about some words if you're kind of a nature person, or some words if you're a nurture person. What words would you include regarding talent? Anything so far, Yield?
We have natural ability, God-given ability, performance, innate potential, perception.
Some great words so far. So just put in a second So natural ability, God-given ability. So something that people have just got, this gift from God. Innate talent. So that's something that's just so natural, so normal. Yeah, if you saw me trying to play guitar, you'd all mute it quickly so you couldn't hear me because I'm rubbish. But there'll be somebody in this audience who can pick up a guitar and play it like I tie my shoelaces. It's so easy. So anything else, Yale? Any more definitions that we can use?
We also got instinctive.
Great. Yeah.
Further vision, technique, confidence.
Wonderful.
Expression of an attribute which is useful to the team and your personal performance.
Great. So we've got team, we've got personal performance, we've got technique, we've got some psychological attributes coming there. Okay. So all of these things are all linked to what, if that alien was being explained, what a talent ID, what talent was, some of those words might be in it. So here's a basic one. So for me, if I was to put a definition of talent, I would say it's a natural ability to be good at something that can be developed through appropriate training. And I think it's really important to recognize that even though people are very naturally talented, and it's obvious to see, it's so easy to see that somebody's so good at something, the way they move, the way it's effortless in their actions, the way they can control or strike a football. Yeah. To get to the very top, and it doesn't matter how good they are when they come into Manchester United Academy, to get to the very top, they have to go through a pathway that has lots and lots of development. And sometimes it'll be good, and sometimes it'll be bad, and sometimes it'll be really, really difficult to get through. Now, I could tell you stories about players that we've had who've had limited talent, and the developmental pathways has really enhanced that talent, and they've become good without having that real, innate natural ability. I could tell you other players with fantastic natural ability who have not done as well as they should have done with the ability, the God-given talent they were given. And that's maybe for lots of different reasons, but sometimes the development pathways just not work for them. Okay. So trained people will be able to identify advanced indicators of talent. And early indicators of talent provide a basis of predicting who's likely to excel. So if you think, if you've got a real eye for talent and you can spot talent, and you could come and work in the UK or work in Europe or work in the States or be the best talent identifier in Trinidad and Tobago, that makes you so valuable to maybe the national teams or your club teams to be able to go and find that talent. You've got a population of 1.3 million. So finding those gems, those diamonds in the rough, finding them, on the parks, on the beaches, in the schools, playing football, sometimes maybe excelling in other sports, and you recognize that could be transferred into soccer or football. So those people who are trained in identifying advanced indicators of talent are very valuable to clubs, because players in the UK are becoming multi-million pound commodities. Now, we at Manchester United never see players as commodities. We see the people. But if you treat people right and the talent pathway is correct, then that talent develops. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little video now. Okay, I'm just going to stop sharing first to make sure that I've done something I need to do. And then I'm going to show you this little video. And when I show you the video, I want you all to tell me what you think about the player that scores the goal. Okay, let me go back to it. So I've just optimized my video so you get the best we can get. Okay, so watch this player. Now, the player on the edge of the box there is a young Mason Greenwood. He's wearing number 11, so watch out for him. This player's Dion McGee, who's now left the club, and James Garner, Jimmy Garner, is also involved in the goal. But watch the player who scores and tell me what you think. Oh, sorry, try that again. So that's a cold, windy day in Windsor many years ago when young Mason Greenwood was playing up for the under-12s away at Blackburn Rovers when he was under 11. And there's some good players in that team that come all the way through with him. Now, the player who scored the goal, okay, does anybody recognise that player? If you do, just put so in the chat now. Have a guess. You'll tell me if any name comes up.
Almost immediately, Luke Shaw.
Okay. Now, straight away, people will start guessing left-footed talent, good players, players who've gone all the way. That player was released from Manchester United 2 weeks after he scored that goal. Okay? And that's why I use that video, because that player, despite having that wonderful technique and despite being a really fantastic kid and having lots of great attributes, lacked one or two things that meant he would never really go all the way in a developmental program, despite having some things that were really good. So even when you've got the ability to score goals like that, it doesn't always mean that you're going to go all the way on certain developmental programs. Okay. Now, when we consider what is potential, so we know we've defined ability, but now when we consider what is potential, potential is, the possibility of doing and performing. The ability is not quite there, but you can see possibility. It requires appropriate training. It needs coaching and development. So we have some players who they do some things really, really well, and we can see that they need to stay in the program as long as possible, even if they've got real weaknesses, to try and improve those weaknesses because they've got one or two special talents. We call it in England super talents. Okay, so that boy I just showed you got released. His problem was that he was very wooden in his movement, and he couldn't get around the pitch. And when he was released, I wondered if we'd made the wrong decision. And he went to another club, Preston North End, in the Championship, and I interestingly watched his development. And interestingly enough, I think he was released under 14, so he didn't go much further. Okay, and it was down to his mobility on the pitch. So sometimes you need a few more things. Now, some of these things are the basic things, kind of fundamental transferable skills. So acceleration, balance, agility, movement patterns. And when I talk about movement patterns, if I was to go to one of your, say, big schools on one of the islands, and I was to just watch your kids under normal circumstances without COVID restrictions at school, playing in the playground, immediately with my 20 years of experience working with elite kids, I would immediately pick up on the movement of those kids. Even if they had the ball, before I even saw the ball, I'd see the movement, how fluent they are in the movement, how effortless it looks, how quickly they can change direction, show that balance, that agility, that acceleration. That's the first thing my eye's drawn to. I might look at deceleration. You think of Ronaldo at his peak, how he'd sprint off and he'd almost stop dead and players would run 10 meters past him. So deceleration is just as important as acceleration. Bravery to get on the ball, bravery to make a tackle. And I think two of the most important things for me when I'm looking for a footballer is striking technique. So how they can, caress the ball, feather the ball, strike the ball in using different techniques, using 2 feet, using different parts of the foot. And then I think most importantly, probably the reason I didn't make it to really good level was my first touch, because I was never taught it as a kid properly. And it makes me really passionate to make sure that when I teach kids, the first touch is good, the striking technique's good. Because no matter how good anybody is, regarding the speed, agility, movement, balance, if they can't strike the ball properly and they haven't got a first touch, it's going to be very difficult to be a footballer.
Dean, can I make a point, please? One of the participants in the chat said at that time was, and I'll put it in a different way, was there a movement specialist that could have seen, look, that just needs to be worked on, but he obviously has talent? Or does that come down to one coach, the coach making that decision?
It's a great question. What we do now, we have a collective kind of decision making. So Eamon, Dion. So Eamon's like our head of 9 to 13. So Eamon heads up the team. Me and Carl say as under 12s coaches, Carl Brown who I work with, Our job is basically to, when we're asked a question about do we feel that player should get a 2-year contract at 13 and 14, we either say yes, 100%, or we say maybe a 6-month extension, but maybe not 2 years at this stage. Now, very often we're very attached to the children, Dion, because we've known them since they've been 5, 6 years of age. We know them like our own kids, and we're very much attached, and we're invested in, and it's very difficult for us to kind of look ahead more than 1 year. So that's where Eamon and the recruitment team, will probably have meetings as well, and they'll grade a player, and that player then, if he's in a grey area where he may not be offered a new contract, then there'll be early discussions, there'll be interventions put in. So back to the question, yes, if it's a physical problem, we'll do our very best to recognise that and try and improve it. If it's a different problem, we do the very best we can, because we're in the business of trying to keep players. Our job is to get them to the next level, under 13s. The difficulty with our age group is that it's a 2-year contract, 12 and 13. If it was a 1-year contract, it's less of a gamble. But remember, it's not just a gamble with kids in respect to will they make it. It's about the best thing for the child. So if a child is going to really struggle on bigger pitches under 13 and under 14, it may be better for them to go to a different club and be a bigger fish in a smaller pond for their own developmental pathway. But it's a full team effort. It's not an individual coach making that decision. I think those days are long gone. Okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. Any questions like that, by all means, just jump straight in. Okay. So it's really important that even though if you're a scout, you're looking for players in Trinidad and Tobago and you're looking for these things, all right, really important that, you emphasize, that first touch, that striking technique. It's got to, as a young player, when you get to 12 years of age, your window of technical opportunity starts to narrow. That's all the science tells us. Now, that doesn't mean say you can't learn new technical skills. Of course you can. But if you're not really putting in those fundamental skills at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, they may never get to the potential. So, that's the kind of development programs you want in Trinidad and Tobago with your young children. It's about real technique. Okay. We can catch up on the physical side later on. Okay. In my opinion. Now, if we think about talent and we look at these 4 examples, these 4 images. Okay. So we're going to break out into our first little break. We're only going to go maybe 5 minutes. And I want you to consider, okay, each of the 4 people. And there's a couple of clues next to the names, like the Williams sisters, Lionel Messi, Tom Brady, the American quarterback, Usain Bolt, maybe still is the fastest man on the planet. I know he's enjoying retirement now. So I just want you to consider that, okay? So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. So just take a picture on your phone or remember the 4 people if you can. I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment and we're going to go into our first little breakout, okay? And I'm going to tell you what we're going to do in the breakout rooms. So when you go into your breakout room automatically for 5 minutes, you're just going to consider those 4 people and you're going to discuss just for 5 minutes what made those special. What was it that made those people special? And then what we're going to do, we're just going to randomly, I'll do this. I'm going to randomly choose one of the groups and I'm going to ask a group spokesperson to tell me about one of the people they discussed. Then I'll go to a different group and go to a different person they discussed. Is there any questions about that? Are we good to go?
Somebody just asked if they can see the picture again for 1 minute, please.
No problem. I will go back. Okay, so that is the picture. Okay, so we've got the Williams sisters. There's a bit of a clue there. We've got Lionel Messi. Clue there. Usain Bolt. Clue there. And Tom Brady. A little bit of a clue there. All of these will be linked to things I'm going to talk about as the presentation goes along. Is that okay, Dion?
Yes, that's fine, Coach.
Okay, fantastic. Right, so we're going to go now to the breakout room. See you in 5 minutes. Discuss away those 4 people. concentrate maybe on one in particular. See you soon. Okay, now the new people who've come in, we just need to assign those to rooms. Yield, because there's been so many late ones coming in, can you help me just assign some of these to different rooms?
Yeah, I will.
If you don't mind. Okay, that's nearly everybody gone.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thanks, Yield.
All right, no problem.
So we've got a little countdown timer on, so it's just 3 minutes 42. Waltz.
Okay.
Some good discussions going on.
Good stuff. Be really interesting because obviously you guys will, I know he's from Jamaica, but regarding Usain Bolt, it'll be interesting what people come up with about Usain.
Yeah.
Have you got a good relationship with Jamaica? Is there a lot of interaction between the different Caribbean islands, or is it pretty much people stay in their own island and
the outcome, or no matter who coaching, and you put your mind and you have dedication and determination, you ought to be what you want to be in life now.
And discipline too.
Yeah. So
I went to the Dominican Republic on holiday. So obviously that Dominican Republic and Haiti. But I'd love to go to Jamaica and Trinidad. Very nice. Has a friend invited me to here, or shall I pick one?
No, we already sorted it out. I'll be presented for reply.
Okay, Damien, which person did you talk about the most, and can you tell us what you came up with?
Well, we talked about all of them. I don't really think we focus on one. We looked at the common thread with all of them is they all face some form of adversity. We're looking at the Williams sisters and how they started playing tennis with their dad in Compton, having to deal with.
Damien,
Hi.
Fantastic that you've said there's a thread and a common thread, and they all face some adversity. So just tell me about the Williams sisters, then, please. We'll use that as your main topic.
All right, no problem. Yeah, so starting playing tennis with the dad in Compton, and one with the economic situation they had, and also the social issues that they had to face with drug dealers and that kind of stuff, coming up from there to pretty much being champions of the world, both of them. That's a serious adversity that they had to overcome. So that shows that one, they had the talent, plus the determination and the mindset to see it through.
So the environment that, even though it was difficult, probably provided the kind of drive to do well. What about the dad? What about the father? Did you discuss anything about the dad? Was he a positive influence, a negative influence? What did you discuss?
Yes, well, we said that he was the one that he saw that they had a gift that was bigger than where they are, and he was relentless in them. He did whatever he had to do to get them what they needed to get out of there. So he was definitely the driving force and the pillar in that.
Superb, well done. And I've read stuff about him being, almost like a kind of military kind of, you mentioned the word relentless, and he'd make them train hours, and he'd encourage them, and he'd get them to where they needed to get to, and he was so determined. He was like, their personal trainer, tennis trainer, you name it, and it paid off. And I think as also, what about the sibling rivalry? Do you think that paid any? Did that give any inclination to how they developed? Was that a positive again? That the fact that you had two sisters?
Yes, well, Dale mentioned that the group member, he was talking about that as well. The group, we had that small discussion as well about the siblings and being able to push each other as well. So you had the competition, you had someone at a high level right there with you. So you had that constant back and forth with both of them there. So it's not like you face a good player once a week. With the both of them, is every day you're facing a potential champion. Yeah,
brilliant. So you've got, a lot of players don't make it through development to reach their potential because, I've talked about in the USA, when I've coached in the USA, that I've seen football players in the USA, they've been brilliant. My friend who's got his club over there, they're playing 2 years up, but in Syracuse and New York State, they're so far apart, they can't play with the best of the best. Geographically, it causes problems, and in Canada as well. But right there in Washington, you've got two sisters, both great talents playing against each other every day, perfect training partner, world-class players, pushed by the dad, that sibling rivalry. As a scout that used to work for Man United, who I know very well, and he would, if he saw a good football player, he'd go and watch that player at junior age groups, and he'd on purpose, he'd look for the younger sibling. He'd look for the younger kid, the younger boy or the younger girl, and he'd watch them kicking a ball about. And very often that younger brother or younger sister, because of the older brothers and older sisters, they would go on to be better players and have better potential than their older brother or older sister. So I think it's really important when we're looking for talent to consider the importance of sibling rivalry sometimes, especially if it's fostered the right way. Thank you. Your group was excellent there, Damien. Great discussion. We're now going to go to my lucky number. Let's go to room 10. Okay, so room 10. Have we got a spokesman for room 10? And can we talk about a different image? Not obviously the Williams sisters.
On room 10, this is Yannick Quintal here. We spoke on, well, I kind of take up the majority of the time, unfortunately, but we were talking about Tom Brady. The first thing that's, well, I watch a lot of American football, so I know Tom Brady more than anybody. I know about Coach Martinez a little bit, how he worked with Tom Brady after the draft. He went after to work on his mechanics to make sure that everything was good so he could be a great quarterback in the NFL. But I think the main thing about Tom Brady was that he was doubted and people only looked at his physical attributes. So we know the draft story about how he looked. He didn't have the typical NFL body. He didn't have a fast 40 time or whatever. And he ended up going in his 6th round, 199 pick in the draft. But it took an opportunity. So one of the main quarterback that was there, he got injured. And from then, I don't think he ever missed a game until he got injured in that one season. But it just speaks to Tom Brady's innate ability to play, to know the game. He was a student of the game. Also, once you give somebody that opportunity, especially somebody who, you know, wasn't highly touted, that just puts like a chip on the shoulder now. So they just have that inner belief in themselves that they could play the game better than anybody. And well, we know everything else was history after that. Tom Brady recently won his 7th Super Bowl at 43 years old. He's still playing. He's playing with people's sons right now in the NFL. So it just speaks to Tom Brady's character. It speaks to his innate ability to play the game. And it don't have to be a highly touted recruit. You could just have to have those intangibles that make you the player that you could become.
Superb, fantastic, that absolutely brilliant. I couldn't have explained that any better myself. So well done, that group. Excellent, great discussion. And when you look at that particular individual you discussed, it shows you that if somebody's got that kind of obsessive nature, that kind of repetition of practice, you know, when everybody else is in enjoying themselves, they look like they're a bit boring because they're out, they're practicing. And he's, like I say, 43 years old, one of the greatest quarterbacks ever in the sport. So, you know, and pretty much as a younger player, cast aside, not regarded because of a couple of physical attributes that were regarded as, you know, not good enough to be a top class player. So great, well done. Okay, brilliant. We're going to go to 2 more rooms. So I'm going to go to room 13, please. And can we choose one of the 2 remaining images to discuss? Anybody in room 13? Cleven, Colin, Garth, Kenesha, Michael, Sean, and Vaughan. Any volunteers?
Yeah, that's me. Okay, this is Vaughan. Which one we want to discuss? The Messi?
Messi or Usain?
Okay, all right. Well, we talked about Messi briefly. We spent more time on the sibling rivalry, but in terms of Messi, we discussed about how the fact that he was so small, because of his problem with his growth, that it probably pushed him harder than the other kids around him, and probably forced him to develop things like speed, agility. He had to think a little quicker because he didn't really want to get pummeled by the bigger kids. And this kind of stuff actually ended up being, although we will look at it initially as a negative, it probably gave him that little edge he needed to improve and develop. And then, of course, as he got his treatment and he became more balanced, well, he was a step up, more or less.
Superb. And there's some great videos on YouTube of Messi when he was playing for one of his junior teams as a young kid, half the size of everybody else, literally getting kicked up in the air like you just explained, and still overcoming it and bouncing back and being made of almost like granite, and became the player we all know, you know, and we were blessed to see such a player. Brilliant, well done. And last but not least, please, room 2 about Usain Bolt. What did you discuss about Usain Bolt?
So what we discussed about Usain Bolt was the fact that we related it to our situation here in the Caribbean, the fact that he was genetically gifted and that we have a lot of genetically gifted footballers in Trinidad and Tobago who need a little bit more direction in terms of coaching. And also the fact that he was given a good environment with his coaches and everything, and who gave him a good platform to succeed, because he was encouraged by, I believe it was one of his high school coaches, to try out for the athletics team or to go down the path of athletics. And from there, he just never looked back.
Yeah, superb, Takuma. And if you think about his build, he was a game changer, because nobody thought a man of his height would ever be a 100-meter Olympic gold champion, you know, gold medalist. And everybody thought, you know, your traditional sprinter was, you know, 5'10", short, stocky, powerful, explosive off the blocks. And yet, you know, it took probably 40 minutes to get going and get into his stride. And then he just blew everybody away. So it made people think about, hold on, the profile of this sprinter is different. And it made people start looking at other different types of athletes. And I think we need to be careful of that with football, because with football, you know, it's like the emperor's new clothes. Whoever's the best player for Real Madrid, for Manchester United, for Liverpool, for, you know, whoever your team is, and the greatest players in the world, everybody feels that we have to produce those type of players or players in that kind of mold. And I don't think you can think that way. You know, you've always got to be thinking outside the box, looking for different players, you know, in different parts of the world. But really good. So just a little just a little activity to get you thinking. I'm seeing some great stuff coming up in the chat. So please, if you've not had a chance to speak in your groups or you want to talk more about sibling rivalry, please put that in so everybody can access that as we go along. All right, so that's fantastic. Okay, right, I'm just going to carry on now. All right, well done. So moving on. So that's good activity, well done. So if we now move forward and think about, we talked about physicality and physical growth and maturation. Well, if you look at the bone age of, which tells us the skeletal maturity and growth potential, what we used to do at United, we used to do a radiograph of the non-dominant hand and wrist, and all our players, had that done at a young age, and it told us how many centimeters or feet and inches they'd be when they got to adulthood. And in some cases, decisions were made on that, especially with specialist positions like goalkeepers and centre backs and people who, on average, in a profile of a player had to be of a certain height. And I'll come back to a story when we get to one of the images a little bit later on about somebody I work with who's now a first team player who was due to, or was predicted there'd be about 5'10" on the bone X-ray, and it was incorrect. But I'll come back to that. 70% of Premier League footballers are born in the first 6 months of school age. Okay, so in your country, it would be January. Your country goes January to December. So most of your footballers are guaranteed born January, okay, to June. Okay, and in England, because we go school year September, okay, all the way till August, most of our kids who play Premier League football in our 6 months are September, October, November, December, January, and a little bit in February. So the first 6 months. So it makes you think, where's all the talent in the last 6 months? And why is that talent being ignored? So one of the things we do at the academy, we do a lot of bio banding, and we based it on physical attributes, maturity rather than chronological age. So we've got a current under 13. All right, at the moment, he's the same size. He's bigger than probably most of our under 16s. So we have to put him in his biological age quite often, so we can't always rely on his physicality. Likewise, we've got younger players who drop down to under 11 and under 12, even though they may be under 14, so they can physically be even with players, so they don't always have to do like Messi and be quicker with the brain and quicker with the feet. So sometimes they can, do stuff physically as well. So that's really important to consider, okay? Especially when it comes to development of players, but also when it comes to when you're looking for players. So things to consider when you're looking for players. Yeah, be aware of the chronological and biological age. I'm sure everybody in the FA of Trinidad and Tobago have been going on about this. Don't just look at the biggest players. Don't, look at how old somebody is, but also, if you can, try and work out the early developers or late developers. The place of birth. So it's just the same in England, just the same in Trinidad and Tobago, that if you're born in a town with average resources, good resources, you've probably got more chance of being discovered than if you're born in a busy city where you could be missed, or out in the countryside where you could also be missed. So place of birth can be very important to talent being recognized. Exposure to
Sorry, somebody was asking in the chat, at what age is radiography done, or is it done?
So at United, we did it to 9 and 10-year-olds and 11-year-olds. So we did it for years, but then we stopped doing it. So we don't do it. It was a woman called Mandy Johnson, and I think she might be a professor now. And if you Google her name, Mandy Johnson, I think she's over in the Middle East now, but she did a lot of research on it. Okay, but when Mandy left and other people came in, the new people who came in didn't think it as important to consider it as important as it was previously. Okay,
thank you.
So exposure to talent ID opportunities. So, in the UK now, I'm going to talk about development centres in a little while. Anybody 5 or 6 years of age in the UK, if they can kick a ball, it's very, very difficult for them not to at least get a chance to go into a development centre, which I'll explain a little bit later. In other countries, like I've been doing some work in Egypt, there's a lot of places in Egypt where, we're helping them with their talent ID, because it's very difficult to be spotted in Egypt, you know, for different reasons. Mo Salah, the famous Mo Salah player for Liverpool, was an exception to the rule. Yeah, he was very lucky that his talent was recognised. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't a fluke, because he used to walk miles to get to where he had to go to. But we're trying to help them find more Mo Salahs in more remote places. Okay. And obviously on that image, you know, don't always think the biggest guy is the best guy. Okay. Or biggest girl is the best girl. I know one of the previous people you've had have talked about relative age effect, so I'm not going to go into that. But for people who've never heard of it before, just very simply, okay, it's based on, you know, the gap over time. So what you get a lot of kids who they're picked in recruitment. They're picked by scouts because they're the biggest and the strongest, and they are the most. It's obvious that they're the best at that age at that time. And you can see that in England, we start from September. So you can all see that 39, 29, 21, 14. So apart from a few anomalies, all right, most of the kids in each age group, okay, are all from September, October, November, December birthdays, the first quartile. Now that can't be a fluke. That's because the scouting must be looking at players who are most effective at that time, rather than players doing special things who may have potential for the future. Because all these kids born in the second half of the UK year, the school year, March, April, May, June, July, August, there's so few of them apart from a few in April, it makes you wonder, all right, where's all the talent there? Okay, where, are they doing other sports? Are they being ignored? Is it just because they're small? So where the UK was very physically biased, we're trying to change that. All right, it might be the same in your country. Okay, so when we think about talent indicators, Howard Davidson in 1998 put it into 5 nice and simple areas to consider. So you had physical, which is about speed, height, and somotype. Somotype's your body type. So ectomorph is kind of, you know, endomorph. Mesomorph is your athletic V shape. Yeah. Your ectomorph is your chunky pear shape. Your endomorph is your tall Peter Crouch type, tall, skinny kind of shape. Then you got physiological, so your genes, your aerobic and anaerobic capacity. Now, to a certain degree, your physical genes with your speed and height, you know, you're born with what you're born with. But physiological, with the right training and the right environment, you can maximize your aerobic and anaerobic capacity, you know, with sports science and nutrition, etc. Sociological, sometimes they're just the cards we dealt. So our parents, our guardians, the education, our practice opportunities. Some of you have read probably lots of books on talent ID. You know, I think Bounced by a table tennis guy in the UK, and you know how he just happens to live next to a hall that had a table tennis table, and he became a top table tennis player. Sometimes it's luck. Sometimes it might be somebody in your family. It might be, you know, a school teacher. It might be a friend. Okay, but these practice opportunities, you know, can be where you live. I'm moving house in a few weeks, and the house I've bought backs onto a park, which has got an all-year weather pitch and a grass-like pitch. And 3 of my boys are all young kids who are playing football at the minute. That might be the difference with me moving there, with one of them making it, than if I stay where I am now, which is not in a great place for them to go and play. So little things. Psychological, your mental toughness, your motivation, your concentration skills. And obviously what I mentioned before, the technical side, your game-related, touch, striking, skill-related skills. Now, to make it simple for footballers, we just put all those 5 into 4. So technical, skill-related, physical, psychological, and sociological, right? So we're going to do a little activity. I'm going to put you back into groups, right, very quickly. And I want you to pretend that you are now head of recruitment for a team in Trinidad and Tobago. You've just got the job. You're having a meeting now with your scouts, all right? You're having a meeting with your scouts. And in that meeting, you've got to decide your philosophy going forward for recruitment. And even though all 4 corners are important, you need to put them in order of importance that you think for the future of Trinidad and Tobago football. right? What are the most important? What comes first? And you've got to back it up and tell me why. And I'm only going to choose 2 groups to tell me why this time. Okay, you ready? So 4 corners: technical, physical, psychological, sociological. You have to put in order of importance, and you have to pick one which you feel is the most important if you're going to develop footballers in your country. Okay, see you in 5 minutes. Same rooms. We'll change rooms next time. Anna, Jason, and Junior.
We didn't come to a great consensus in room 3.
So tell me what you discussed then.
Well, we had a discussion between the importance of psychological versus technical. One half, I'd say one part of the group wanted psychological first, the other part of the group wanted technical first. The argument for both was that, like, well, I was on the psychological side because I said the mental state of the player is very important psychologically. Like the example like you used was Messi. Every time he got kicked down, he would get up. So at his size, it didn't seem like, wow, this kid just keep getting kicked down. But psychologically, he had the mind state of just keep on fighting. The argument for technical was that if we observe in a player and they have the technical ability, that when you're observing them real quickly, you'll notice the technical ability, so you have it. But my counter argument to that was technical ability could be developed over time. Psychologically, though, that is a mental state that is innate, that toughness to want to succeed, to fight through regardless of the adversity, that regardless of how you want to teach that, some people just don't have that. So it's less something that you could teach, and it's more innate than technical. Technical is a repetition exercise, muscle memory, that kind of stuff, versus psychological, which is mental.
Superb. Yeah, great discussion. And I think it is very tough to decide. If it was down to me, my bias is that because I probably wasn't technically good enough, as a coach, I really pushed technical more than anything. But I agree with you 100% about the importance of psychology. And if I was to choose a player, say Ravel Morrison, some of you may have heard of Ravel, and I coached Ravel, even though he was a little bit older than my group when I started running teams. But I know Ravel, and there's a great podcast, a recent one with Rio Ferdinand, if anybody's not heard it, and it's really excellent podcast. And with Ravel, he ticked every corner, technical, physically he was good enough. It was amazing, but the psychological corner just wasn't there for different reasons. But the psychological corner wasn't there, and I feel that's why he's probably not achieved his potential. So that back up your argument about psychology being number one if you use Ravel. But everybody will always find a case study that suits their argument. But yeah, great, good, well done. And let's go to one more group quickly because I'm conscious of time. Let's go to room 9. So Clint, Lincoln, Mark, Marlon, Michelle, Roger, and Ryan. Anybody going to speak for the group and tell us what you got first and why? Anyone?
Yeah, Marlon from room 9 here. We didn't get around to discussing a lot of the topics. We kind of stuck on talking about the psychological aspect of it, and then after the psychological, we was going with the physical aspect, and then the technical. So that was the 3 we got stuck at, but we really was trying to discuss all the topics at the same time. Trying to get a clear consensus on all the topics.
Okay, brilliant. No problem at all. It's great that I just want you discussing it. I want you aware of it. I want you to consider that if you were part of a recruitment team, the potential is that you might be a person who really believes in the technical side of the game, like me, and you want all your players to be highly technical, but you might go and work for a club in Trinidad and they've got very much a physical kind of strategy, and all players have to be of a certain physical competence before you recruit them. And that might be difficult for you as a scout when it's not something you truly believe in, but you need to work, you work there, your employers, and you've got to work to their philosophy and find players that meet that criteria. So it can be difficult. But if it was down to me, I'd go technical, psychological, physical, and I think sociological is very important and covers all three. But you could argue each is as important, but it's very much linked to the individual and the club philosophy. Okay, now when we think about talent that goes all the way, do we need to be patient? So I'm just going to show you this little video. Okay, let me just optimize my video. So we're going to show you this little video, and I want you to watch it. And this is about a player called Jesse Lingard, who some of you know. And it just makes you realize that patience is so important when it comes to developing.
So is Rashford. Lingard goes himself. That is stunning. Wonderful goal from Jesse Lingard. All of his own doing.
So when you look at that picture of Lingard there and Jesse, that's him playing for the youth team. And you can see that the opposition look like two doormen, not two big grippers, big physical adults. and Jesse looks like probably an under 12 who'd be playing with me. And that's because he was such a late developer. So we had to be very patient with Jesse before, you know, we had to look after him. So now and again, his skill was up with that age group, but we had to physically look after him so he didn't get seriously hurt. So we had to play him down a lot. And if you notice on that video how many loan spells he had in his early 20s, most top class players get near the first team if they grow normally, you know, in the teenage years. Most top class, world class players in the teenage years, they're in the first team somewhere. Jesse didn't really get anywhere near the first team till his early 20s, and he still had to go out on loan to develop and physically mature as a player. So we have to be really, really patient. You know, and sometimes I think you need to consider, you know, look at Marcus Rashford there. So that's Marcus for, I think, England under 16s, right? Look how small Marcus is now. I think he's 6'1" now, but, you know, 1'8", whatever it is, 1'82", 1'83". But look how small he is compared to the rest of those boys in line. And Marcus was always small and quick, but he was a later developer, you know, and we knew his brothers, you know, I knew Dwayne really well, and we knew that he'd get there at some stage, but we had to be patient. And, you know, and you need to be aware of that. You know, you can't expect them to get there too quick. Anybody reckon Yields? Yeah, Yields, see if anybody recognises that player. Should recognise him now. Just pick on anybody, mate. Anyone? So that is Jack Harrison.
Yeah,
Jack
Mr. Aberdeen recognised the player.
So Jack Harrison was a player that was with us, and he was with me at 12, and I really liked him. He was one of my favourite players. He was like a traditional left winger. He was short, he was stocky, he carried a bit of weight for an academy player. He wasn't athletic. He didn't cover the ground brilliantly. He had a great left foot and he could dribble brilliantly. He was like a traditional old style winger. Now, when Jack got a little bit older, his mum didn't think that he was going to go too much further, and got vibe off the coaches above that maybe he was middle of the group, and she worried about his potential not being realised. So she pretty much gambled, used his intelligence, he was a bright boy, and sent him to America on a scholarship. He went to an Ivy League school. He was a big fish in a little pond. The college games were easy for him. Superb. And you know, we look at him now. He got picked in the draft from college football to New York City, and then he was Man City to Middlesbrough. He's been in Leeds 2 years, and at the end of this season, if Leeds buy him, it's going to cost big money. So his pathway didn't go through Man United and Man United first team. He went to the States, played college football, college soccer, and he still got to his intended, you know, journey's destination, which is Premier League football. So another one. Now, I mentioned before about the bone X-ray. So Scott McTominay, I did some research when I was doing my masters, and I interviewed his dad and his mum and coaches and everybody else, even though I was coaching him, so I was a bit biased. But I remember asking his dad that, because his bone X-ray said he was going to be 5'10", 5'10 and a half. Did his dad think that in the modern game, the way it was going with physicality being so dominant, did his dad think that would affect him? And his dad laughed at me and said the bone X-ray was a load of rubbish, and he would be 6'3", 6'4", just like him and his family, because he's a late developer like I was. That's what his dad said to me. And Scott grew so quickly from 5'7" to 6 foot plus that his youth years are very difficult. And I think Nicky Butt had to almost play him as a striker just to get him on the pitch, because his muscles couldn't keep up with his limbs. So he was always fighting a battle. But we knew at 11 and 12 he was a brilliant player, Scott. And I remember him scoring 12 goals in one game against Everton. He was outstanding. So he was never not going to be that player. But we had to be really patient and allow his muscles and his body to catch back up, and then his neural pathways for his brain and his muscles to get to the stage where he filled out, and then the player came back, and we see him now playing for Man United first team nearly every game. But that was a player that some clubs who weren't as patient may have let him go at 15, 16, 17, thinking that, you know, he couldn't play football because he looked like Bambi on ice. We're going to do a little case study now. So this player, some of you may know, he's called Danny Welbeck. He's 30 years of age. When I got to Man United, he was 2 years above my first age group. So I coached him sometimes, but I really liked him. He's a lovely lad, lovely family. So let's just watch Danny on his debut. It's Old Trafford, 76,000 people, 17-year-old Danny Welbeck.
Berbatov. Welbeck just got it away. As it returned to him quickly by Manusho. Welbeck's effort! Oh, that's tremendous! That seals things beautifully for Manchester United. Here's another name to reckon with. 17-year-old Danny Welbeck. A goal to remember on his Premier League debut, and that's the goal that will please the manager the most today. It is a beauty. Not all Manchester United stars cost millions.
Okay, so now let's look at Welbeck as an 11-year-old at Carrington. Okay, let's watch him now. He's with Ruud van Nistelrooy and a guy called, me and Eamon work very closely with a guy called Rennie Mullenstein, technical skills coach, went on to be first team coach. Okay, so that's Welbeck at 11. Okay, you saw him at 17 score his debut goal, and everybody talking about this player that's going to be, you know, the next big thing at Man United, worth millions of pounds, came right through the academy system. So I want you all now to, before I show you this video, I want you all to give a mark to Danny Welbeck, all right, out of 10. If you give 10, you're saying he's one of the best players in the world, is like Cristiano Ronaldo, like Lionel Messi. Okay, you're saying he's one of the best players in the world, you know, Mbappe. If you're going to give him 5, he's an average Premier League player. Whilst the video's on, I want you to put your number in the chat, 7, 8, 9, 5, 2, 1. Don't worry, you won't offend me if you think he's a poor player, put a poor number in, but you've got to back it up with a bullet point. So why is he a 9? Why is he a 2? Why is he a 5? Everybody do that in the chat while you're watching this video. Don't let this video sway your opinion, because even when I play, there's videos of me looking like a better player than I am. But this is a decent video to look at some positives, some negatives about Danny Welbeck. But in the chat, what number out of 10 and why? Bullet point, please.
A good did. When he gets a chance to run people or take people on, he's still got that enthusiasm, that edge, if you like, that one or two of the others out there so far don't seem to have. He's a top operator, he really is. He's getting better and better the more I see him.
So make some noise while you've got time. Take this poison for your mind. Who knows, you could be gone by this time tomorrow. And I don't know where we're going, but I take pride in not knowing. And you say I will be the one to let this but I take pride in not knowing.
Okay. So, Welbeck, Yield, any figures in there at the minute? Any kind of numbers and comments you can just...
Quite a bit. We have Hazley Joseph giving him a 7, not consistent enough in front of the goal. Mark Barrington, 5, he's an average player and his execution is good. His understanding of the game, he plays well off the ball and transitions well. We have Jassy McDonald also giving him a 7, high work rate, but football understands he needs to work on, like when to pass, where to run. We have Richard Goddard stating that he's okay, 6.5, he's fit, was a go-to player. Alistair Ayong, 7, a lack of consistent finishing, but he does have heart. Mr. Damian Daniel, a 5, average EPL player, which is still a great achievement. Takuma, 5, compared to the other Premier League players, I think he ultimately lacked the ability to take him to higher brackets, but I believe he made most of his ability. And we have Mr. Marlon Phillip at 8. He still has some technical flaws he needs to work on.
Excellent. Right, that's great. I'll pause at the technical flaws. So really good, some great comments, and I agree with pretty much everything that's been said. And what's really interesting with Danny is that, because I saw him grow up a little bit, even though I didn't coach him directly, I saw him grow up above my age group. And if you look at the four corners we talked about before, physically he's an absolute unit. So he's tall, he's wide-shouldered, he's athletic, he's quick, he runs forever. So he ticks every box physically, he's powerful. So he's a really great athlete. Psychologically, every England manager played him first on the team sheet, versatile, played in every position, very intelligent, never lets you down, never gives in, works absolutely tirelessly for his team. Great guy, very humble, lovely family. Can't say how much is, even now when he comes back, he comes and speaks to all the kids, signs everything. Wonderful, wonderful man, right? So psychologically ticks every box. We've said physically ticks every box, sociologically ticks every box. All right. So what let him down? A few of you mentioned technical flaws. So technically, it's really important regarding development that when Rennie came in, Rennie did a lot of work with Jesse and different players of that age group, certainly Danny, making them really one-on-one players. And a lot of stuff was done, curve type coaching. Some of you be aware of curve coaching. You might even use it in your practice. But what happened, we probably went a little bit obsessive on it. And even though it really made those players very technically the best in the UK, we probably didn't play as much game-related stuff as we probably should have done. And I think what happened there, we probably lacked a little bit of decision-making through game-related activities. And when you looked at Danny, then when he got in the first team and he was taken across at 16 because his physicality, he could cope training with the first team. He was brilliant. He was brave. He had very great ability to do things off the cuff and a bit different. So Sir Alex Ferguson liked him, took him across. But then when he played him in lots of different positions, and he played with world-class players. So sometimes, even though he was the go-to guy to do the versatile job, he wasn't the play, who'd shoot a goal, he'd lay it off for somebody else. So I think sometimes his versatility probably didn't help with his development at the real top end. So all your comments really I agree with. All right, so some good stuff there. So well done. Now, very quickly, because I know we're running out of time. Very quickly, if we look at this picture, I want every one of you to give me a number of the. I know you can't feel it, you can't smell it, you can't hear the noise, you can't see the kids kicking balls, but I want you to imagine you're there now on that sideline, and I want you to pick either number 1, number 2, from left to right, number 3, the goalkeeper, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, not looking happy, number 8, who is looking happy, number 9, number 10. I want you to pick any one of those numbers, just put the number in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Put the number in, and then Yale's going to pick, all right, 1 or 2 of you to tell me why you picked that number. Okay? Off you go. So Yale, while the numbers are coming in, okay, just tell me before you pick a name what the first few numbers are coming in.
3, 7, 8, 5,
okay.
9.
Right, let's have a pick at number 3. So number 3 there, who picked him, and can you unmic yourself and tell us why?
Yeah, I picked 3 because of his closeness with the coach. So it looks like the coach-player relationship is good. So I chose him.
Okay, good, interesting. Everybody, this is almost an impossible task. Everybody will pick for a different reason. I'm intrigued why. So then we had number 7. Yale, who picked number 7, please?
I can now.
Okay.
Yeah, pick number 7. He seems to be a little focused on whatever is being done. So if it's a photo, he's focused on the camera in terms of presenting himself. So I'm thinking match day, he's probably going to be as focused as well.
Yeah, good. I mean, to me, he looks a little bit miserable. It looks like he's just been keeping the ball up 100 times. And then one of the coaches said, come here, have your picture taken. And he's probably like me as a kid. He didn't like his picture being taken for obvious reasons. And he's not happy. But yeah, good. What other numbers we got, Yale?
We had 8, 9,
Okay,
and 5.
Right, let's have 8 then, and then 9. So 8 first, then 9.
Kanisha?
Hi, afternoon, everyone. I picked 8 for the simple fact that the child looks happy, like they want to be there. And usually when children are happy and engaged, that's when you get them to learn best.
Yeah, superb. Great point. And that child looks like he's very, very happy. He looks like he's glad to be there. Good. Obviously, no goalkeepers union. Nobody's picked the union, the goalkeepers. This guy here who's got his hand on the ball, who picked him, please, Yale?
That was Mr. Damian Daniel.
Yes, Damien. Why?
Because of that simple fact. He doesn't really care what about the photograph. His hand on the ball, that's my ball. So when it's time to play, I have it.
My ball, I'm playing, nobody else is getting it. Brilliant. Okay, did anybody pick number 6? Anybody here?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
yeah,
tell me
Marcia
why,
Williams.
I picked number 6 because for me, you can see that he is an early bloomer. So I think that he has a physical advantage over some of the other players. So I picked him.
Yeah, excellent. And you know what? In England, a lot of people would always pick number 6 as a real physical bias. So everybody pick, in your words, the early bloomer. Everybody picks a 6. They expect him to be able to cover the ground, dominate possession, knock everybody else over. Now, hardly anybody picks in England the little guy. So somebody did pick number 5. Who was it, please, Yale?
We have Mr. Clint Crouch.
Okay, tell me why.
I picked number 5 because he looks content to be there. He looks like he wants to be there, but he looks a little bit reserved, a little bit kind of timid, like he's not too sure about himself, and he's one of the smallest ones in the team. So that's why I chose him.
So if he's one of the smallest ones in the team, what might that tell you when he's playing with these bigger guys?
He might not be as confident, so he has to try and put in more effort maybe to show himself among the other players.
Excellent. Well done. So let's see who that little guy is. Okay, let's have a little look. This is a little guy doing a little bit of his magic. Do you remember when we used to go and watch football games in crowds? Oh, can't wait for those days again. So, okay, so that was Lionel Messi then. Now, I'm only going to play this for a couple of minutes because I just want you to see him just when he was a bit younger. So only a minute or so. Look at Lionel Messi when he was younger. Just look at his movement. Is it the same young Lionel Messi? Would you have, as a coach, if you'd have looked at this guy, and he's not got a Barcelona strip on, would you have been impressed? Let's have a little watch.
Xavi Llorens, el primer entrenador de Messi al futbol base del Barça, no va tenir dubtes sobre la qualitat d'aquell petit nen que responia al nom de Leo. En el seu informe del mes d'octubre de l'any 2000 ja va destacar el potencial d'aquella perla argentina, que començava a cridar l'atenció pel seu futbol màgic.
Primer trofeu ja vaig ficar que era un petit Maradona, davant les distàncies, i tenia un físic que dic que era poqueta cosa, però tenia una qualitat i una velocitat increïble.
Increïble. La seva adaptació des de l'Argentina no va ser per un
temporada pasada he jugado un partido y a los pocos minutos me he lesionado y ahora he vuelto y muy contento.
La temporada pasada decíamos que prácticamente no pudiste disfrutar. Para que nuestros espectadores te conozcan, tú viniste del equipo del Newell's Old Boys.
Sí, Newell's Old Boys de Rosario, Argentina.
Okay, so we saw him getting a little bit of physical treatment there, and I think a few of you mentioned about how important it is for some of the little guys, little girls, to be able to survive against people who've got a physical advantage. Now, one of the things I wanted to do, we'll do this as a bit of a homework task rather than a task now, but what some people do regarding talent ID, they use an acronym, and the acronym is basically so all their scouts, when they're looking for players, can think, right, I'm a Barcelona scout, so I need to remember that Barcelona players have tabs. I'm an Ajax scout of Amsterdam. I remember that our players have tips, or I might be an Arsenal scout and our players have subs. So what they mean is, okay, the following. So Barcelona, technique, attitude, balance, speed. Ajax, technique, intelligence, personality, speed. So a word change. And Arsenal, skill, understanding, personality, speed. Maybe it's a little homework task. You know, you need to design your own acronym, all right, that's, you know, laced with your culture and your traditions, and maybe that scouts could go and look for a Trinidad and Tobago type player and have your letters that match up to things that you look for in a player that's going to play at a high level in your country. Okay. Now, one of the things that I think is really important for you to consider is this little task. Okay, I'm only going to give you 10 minutes. Okay, so we're going a little bit over. Dean, are we okay going over time a little bit?
Yes, you're fine. You're fine, okay. Dean, go ahead.
We'll do a little 10-minute task. And what I want you to do, I'm going to put you into new groups. Okay, and you're going to be in quite large groups, but I want you all to choose, right? So each group has got to choose a player. Now, that player can be in the 3 following age groups: 8 to 11, so 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12 to 16, or a young professional at 18 to 21, like a youth player turning professional. Obviously, very young, the difficult ages where the growth and the maturity happens a lot, and, you know, the young man and young woman age. So they're your 3 age groups. You choose one of those ages. You then have to choose either a defender, a midfielder, or a striker. If you have a goalkeeper, a right back, a left back, a centre back, they're your numbers. If you have a midfield, right, left, central defensive midfield, central attacking midfield, CDM, cam, they're your numbers, 6 and 8. And you have strikers, traditional 9, kind of playmaker 10. And once you decide in your group which player you're gonna come back with, you're going to consider the 4 corners for a perfect player. All right. And all the attributes that would be required if you were a scout going out looking for that player. And you've got to consider, you know, that position, that age and stage, and identify the predictors of talent for one of the different given positions. So, for example, if I was in a group that chose defender, we might say one of the attributes in our bubble diagram that a defender would need would be aggression, because aggression is important for a defender to have, maybe of a certain age. So I want you in 10 minutes to choose a player, choose an age group, and then as a group, quickly come up with a list of all the things that you need to look for of a player to be top class in that position and of that age. Does that make sense? If it does, fantastic. Take a little picture now if you need to, all right? Or just consider what you'd like before you go into your groups. Okay, so we're going to go into the groups now. I'm going to make the groups completely different. So I'm going to recreate. But when I recreate, I'm going to put you into groups of about 5 or 6, actually. All right. See you in 10 minutes. Off you go. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. I popped in a few rooms. There's some great discussions going on, really good stuff. We haven't got time to go through all of them. So anything you need to say, please put in the chat that can be shared. But I'm going to pick on room 9. So Clint, Lincoln, Mark, Marlon, Roger, Ryan, can I have a speaker to just very quickly summarize your player, what age, what stage, and what you think they would need if you were going to scout a player really good to do well in Trinidad or Tobago. Off you go.
All right, Roger here, representing group 9. We were looking at 12 to 16 age group, intermediate player. We chose a number 7, right midfield. And in the technical area, we looked at ability to dribble, dribbling skills, shooting, agility to drift left, right, physiological. We look at some speed, agility, strength, endurance. On the psychological part, we look at determination, mental toughness, stick to itness, things like that. Social, we look at the ability to get along with players, to communicate with players, to be a good team player, things like that.
Excellent. Some great stuff there. Obviously, with a wide play, modern game, they have to play on the opposite side. They have to play inverted, sometimes inverted wingers. They need to beat a player. They need to be across the ball, different types. Modern game, tactically now, they have to defend. Obviously, 12 to 16, very difficult age group with the growth to consider and all that. So, yeah, excellent. Well done. Okay. So, obviously, every age and stage, you need to consider that person and that list of attributes for that age, for that position. And you need to really consider that so you can almost profile players. But really good. Please share. If one or two of you have shared in the chat, share the information you got in the chat. And I'm just going to share my screen again. Okay. So remember, to get the perfect player, you need to really break down the position, break down the age, and consider what attributes you need, what talent indicators for that player at that age and stage. Right. If we think about, develop potential, you look at some great players on that picture. Wayne Rooney's son is playing with us at the moment in one of our ages. And he's also got that kind of potential that his dad had. Hopefully he might go on to be a great player like his dad, but some great players there. But is it a secret or common sense to develop potential? So when you look at some of these great number 7s, some world-class players, okay, all from different backgrounds. I mentioned before about development centers, and how we work is we start trying to get players from as young as 5. So football used to be a late specialization sport. Some would say now it's an early specialization sport. But if you can just put yourself on mute, please, a bit of background, thank you. But development centers pre-academy, within 1.5 hours of Old Trafford, we'd have 2 scouts, 2 coaches there, and each development center All right, 1, 2, 3, and 4 might have an under 5s, sorry, an under 6s, an under 7s, and under 8s. And the scout would find the players, bring them in. If they do well, they go to the advanced centre. If they do well at the advanced centre, they get an extra night going to the elite centre. After they get to under 8, if they're still doing well, they then get signed and join the academy. Now, we might have, 20 of these development centres, 20, and 5 of these advanced centres that all feed in to the elite centre. And that's how but everybody be doing the same kind of, looking for the same kind of player, coaching the same kind of way, making sure the environment was really good for kids to develop. And here's an example of it. When we talk about a world-class environment, what's important to developing potential. Children are unique. They have one childhood. We are custodians of that childhood. I've got kids myself, and I know that when people look after my kids, I want them to treat them like they're their own kids, and that's what we do. We have to treat them like the children they are, not like mini adults. Yes, that some of them are going to go on to be the best players in the country, even world class, but that doesn't mean we treat them like adults because they've got potential. Okay, one childhood. It must be a stress-free place so they can master techniques and not be scared to express themselves. It must be full of positive people who nurture and embrace all types of talent. Some will be physical, some will be technical, some will be sociologically gifted, some will be psychologically gifted. Some will have a combination of all 4. We have to nurture and embrace each one, each type of player. We have to individualize the programs to those types, and we have to challenge people at the correct time. We have to be experts at when to challenge people. If you challenge them at the wrong time, you can do more damage than good. We have to have a consistent high standards, and we have to have aspirational messages and images everywhere. So anybody who's ever been to Carrington, right down the corridor, pictures of David Beckham, Ryan Giggs, Danny Welbeck, all players who've come through the academy, have made it. All right, George Best, Bobby Charlton, all these players have made it. So our kids are always surrounded by players who've made it and have been on the same pathway as them. So it's inspirational, aspirational. I think if you're going to provide that environment, you've got to have a freedom to play. It's got to be really important. Okay. The work of Cote et al. Is all about, play in a stress-free environment. If I show you an example of it, okay, this is what it should be like. So look at some of the captions that come up. This is probably the last video I'm going to play tonight, but look at some of the captions that come up in this little video. Okay. Just have a little watch and see the important things that come up.
I guess you're right, and there's nothing I would say to you this time. You told me just what I had to live for, and there's no flight in my fight, and more than that, it's so alright, if I mean more than you're right. I guess you're right, if I wake up in your mind. I guess you're right, I guess you're smart, 'cause I'm taken by you, taking me apart. I could best believe I died to live for the hour dictates the need, and I'm thinking like I've spoken on before. If I mean more than you're right.
So a guy in the UK called Paul Cooper said, "Give us back our game." He felt that adults were taking over children's football, and they were making it too professional, too adult-like. And if you look at all those captions that came up on there, more touches, more tackles, more goals, more shots. children refereeing their own games, more tackles. If you have small formats and you let kids play and you provide the right environment and you facilitate that environment that's stress-free and they want to improve and they want to try things, you can only develop footballers. And if you think of factors that can affect or impact player development, right, we have to adapt, we have to improvise, we have to overcome. Yeah, if you push kids too early, all right, they burn out. Yeah, if they do too much too soon. If it's like eating chocolate every day, you get bored of chocolate. Football's got to be in and out the right time. Let them do other things. Let them play cricket. Let them do athletics. Let them be kids. Coaching age specific. You've got to have the right kind of coach for the right people. If you've got somebody who should be running your national team, that's fabulous. But don't put them with under 9s, because you need experts with under 9s and under 10s and under 11s. Yeah, who know kids and know those transitions in those age groups. The changing nature of the game, modernization, physical athletes over mavericks. We can't lose flair. So you've got to encourage skill. It can't be all physicality, especially with children, because they're not physically developed yet. Their aerobic capacity doesn't develop till they're adults properly. The society as well, just like in your country, in my country, society, new type of kid. They're isolated, the virtual, spending too much time on the flickies, not enough time being out and about, climbing trees, climbing walls, running, sprinting, playing games, doing all the things that past generations have done to develop that physical literacy. So you've got to make sure that you help them adapt, improvise, overcome, embrace modern technology, but use it to our advantage. FIFA, you know, all the stuff that they do, get them to understand the game through it, but get them outside playing as well, especially when it's safe to do so. 10,000 hours, 3 hours a day for 10 years to become an expert, the early worker chase, etc. Now, it's not all football related. It can be linked to athleticism, etc. But with big study in the UK, our academy kids are only getting 6,250 hours. Is it enough? Probably not. So we need more games. We need to get them to play more. Who are the most important people to develop talent? The coach and the parent have got to be 1 and 2. You might think it's a parent. Some of you might think it's a coach. They've got to work in tandem, and then everybody else is just part of the team. Safeguarding officer, education, welfare, sports science support, and many, many more. Scout just finds a diamond, puts a diamond into a development program. But anyway, physios, medical staff, kit drivers, families, groundsmen, all important people. Carlos Alberto in 1970 talked about the English players that needed to improve technique, technical skills, dribbling, good movement, pick a pass, the key to breaking teams down. You didn't see that when England played. The style was always the same. I think over many years now, we've changed that with the DNA. Arsene Wenger, ex-Arsenal manager, said he goes around the world, nobody loves football more than England. You might argue differently in Trinidad and Tobago. But he said at pre-club academy stage and school-wise, it was behind. There was no uniformity, no consistency the whole country. If you miss, it's like an acorn growing into an oak tree. If you don't put the stuff in at the fundamental age group, they'll never reach potential. You'll never get that stage back. He said it was one of the reasons English football suffered for so long. I think we've got over that now. I think we're really developing top players. Always think about how other countries do it. The Germans, the Spanish, the French, the Belgians. Try and find out what we can learn. What can you learn from them? You know, that's a whole different lecture. Simple adjustments with younger players. Okay. Basic things about, you know, I could give you one example. If you look at this is a good practice. Okay. It's a good practice. There's nothing wrong with this practice. Okay. But I'll explain it in a moment.
El objetivo sigue siendo la toma de decisiones y la perfección en el tiro, pero aquí aumentamos la dificultad en la toma de decisiones ya que son dos jugadores que toman decisiones. Vamos a demostrarlo. En el pase está la toma de decisión. Si yo voy a este lado, Jordi va al lado contrario y el pase va a él. Si yo voy a este lado, Jordi va al lado contrario y el pase va a él. Venga, chavales, vamos. Buena, chaval, buena. Buen control, buen pase. Buena, chaval, buena.
So there's nothing wrong with that, but it's a practice, it's a skill, okay? It's a technical practice. With kids, especially the younger ones, let the game be the teacher. So set up games, set up practices where they can have 1,000 shots in a practice, in a shooting game, where, you know, they're having to make real decisions like in a real game, not just always sterile, dry practices all the time, okay? Really important to consider stuff like that. Let the game be the teacher. Okay, one of the things you might want to consider, you know, how important is this for us, for you, to develop and empower your players to love the game whilst learning? You know, think about problems with your current games program. Do they play enough games? Is there enough variety? Is there lots of innovation? Are the kids coming in desperate to try new things? If they are, that's brilliant. If they're not, maybe we need to look at that. You know, give ideas on a better, improved games program to nurture talent rather than hinder it. Okay, really important. And if you do that, you'll find and develop future talent without a doubt. Football in 2030 is going to be faster. It's going to be more unorthodox. It's going to be even greater, varied than it is now. Players who are intelligent are going to be the players that stand out. People that can disguise, have deceit to beat the block and stubborn defenders, they're going to be the best players. It's always going to be possession-based. Teams, very rarely, you might get the exception to the rule like Atletico Madrid or Leicester a few years ago in England. But the team in the most possession, the team that normally wins. Inventive, more solo players and Mavericks will flourish, okay, because the tactics of games and physicality is nearly at its peak. All right. Universality, instancy, athleticism, all considerably enhanced as the game develops. But what I'm interested in is, can you guys, you know, make the next best player in the world be from Trinidad and Tobago? Okay. So thank you for listening to me. I'm sorry I've gone on a little bit longer than expected. Are there any questions? If there's no questions now and you need to get off, please get them to Dion or Yale and they'll come to me on email and I'll reply back to you privately. Okay. Thank you, Dion.
Thank you. So what I'll say, guys, is put your questions in the chat and we will get them to Dean, and Dean will send them to us, answer them and send them back to us. Dean, two quick questions here. Judy had asked, one of the people on had asked, if what ages do the players at Man United Academy have access to psychologists? And the follow-up question was, how important do you think futsal to be?
What was the last question? Sorry, Dean, I heard the first part.
How important is futsal, the sport of futsal?
Brilliant. Okay, so the first part of the question, psychology. Our psychologists are available right from under 9, the first year, but realistically, we don't start bringing them in till probably 12 and beyond. When the players start getting psychological profiling and a lot of help with certain things, it's probably 14 and older. What we expect at Man United is our coaching teams to have some psychological knowledge. So I've done a master's in sports science. Okay, Carl, who I worked with, was one of the class of 92. So he's experienced nearly getting there and not quite making it. I've experienced not quite making it, but I also have an educational background as well and some psychology qualifications. So with that experience, we're meant to help the younger ones and do the psychology as part of our role. But if we need expert, then we bring our psychologists in, but it's normally when they're older. In respect to futsal, as you're probably aware, it's a separate game, massively in South America, part and parcel of their development program. We're not so much with us. We do a lot of futsal kind of stuff, but we do it with normal footballs. We do futsal for variety. We let them do it. We have competitions. We go into the national competitions. We get to finals. Sometimes we even win it, but we don't do it where we practice it and it's part of our developmental program. We do it more as a variety for the kids rather than development, because it's great, but it's a different ball. It's a different set of rules. Technically, it's a different game. You know, that's the club's kind of lean to it. Okay.
Sorry, I'm going to ask Natalie to move a vote of thanks to me, please. Natalie, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Can you do the vote of thanks, please?
Sure. Just want to say, actually, I am not from football. I don't have a football background. I am from the hockey side of things, and I was just an observer here. And this has been great. This has not opened our eyes, but kind of opened our thinking a little bit. It has broadened our horizon a little bit to help us see the outside of what we look at in our sport. And I thank you, Dean, for the opportunity to be part of this and to move forward with football and move forward with sport in this country, because I do think that this is what we need for sport. We need more of this in sport in our country. So thank you very much again.
Natalie, thanks for your kind words. And I feel that whether we're talking about hockey, football, whatever sport, I think some of these messages are so important, you know, especially working with the younger you know, boys and girls. You know, if they're going to fall in love with the sport, if they're going to enjoy it, if they're not going to feel stress, they're not going to feel pressure, then, and they get the right kind of game, then they are going to develop without question. Thank you.
Right, great. So thank you very much. And what I'll do, guys, you leave your questions in the chat and we will get the questions on to Coach Dean. Coach Dean, on behalf of the normalization, FIFA normalization committee, behalf of the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association, behalf of the Trinidad and Tobago Sports Company, on behalf of the TTOC, the Olympic Company of Trinidad and Tobago, we want to thank you very much for taking the time of your busy schedule. Of course, you came from a game and then straight into this to spend time with us, right? So it's very, very happy. I know we went over the time. We tried to avoid it, but the information was so good, and of course the coaches wanted to stay on. So again, Dean, thank you very, very much, and we will discuss, you know, very soon. So on behalf of all the participants, thank you very much from Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you very much. My absolute pleasure, and I hope you all get over this pandemic very soon, and everything goes back to normal in Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you, Dion. Thanks for the opportunity. Take care, everyone. Thank you, Annette. Thanks, Tobias.
Dean. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. Excellent presentation. Really well enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. See you soon, Dion.
See you soon. Thank you, Dean. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, mate. All the best.
No problem at all.
Again, keep it up. Well done. Excellent.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Knott. That means a lot. Thank you very much for the encouragement. We really appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thanks for that presentation. That was great. Good stuff.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Dion.
Thanks, Willem. Thank you very much, buddy. Thank you very much for the feedback.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dion.
Thank you very much, Dion. Work well done.
That means a lot. Thank you, Michael. That means a lot. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dion.
Thank you. And I want to say thank you to Yale also, our technical guy who really helps put this together. And I make the appointments, but he's the one puts everything together and get the messages out. And so Yale, thank you very much. And
yeah, great job, Yale.
Thanks, Leon. Thanks, everyone.
We have some really, really good seminars coming up soon, guys. So you guys keep in touch, and nothing on for next week, but from the following weeks. We have some really good stuff coming on. So you guys stay with us, and we'll try to provide the information for you.
Hey, thank you, guys, for everything, man.
Yeah.
It was nice looking on.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Lavocada and the team, TTFA.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Mr. Dion. Much appreciated.
Yes, honor to have you guys.
Was the WhatsApp group formed?
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Damien,
Yes,
Damien Daniel has formed a group.
All right. Well, let me I'll put my number in the chat. If we can do the chat on a little bit, I'll put my number in the chat and people can message me, or they can message Clint as well. Clint is the man who chat the chat. But I'll put my number in.
Put it in the chat, or we leave it on a little bit so you guys can get the number.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay, my number's in the chat now.
Okay. Hello, Dion. Are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Yes, I wanted to ask a question, and I'd appreciate your feedback as well as anybody else's feedback. As a coach that coaches at all different age groups and different levels of the sport, you always see quality, you always see talent, right? There are some players, especially in some of the rural communities, that you see, and they're very, very impressive, very impressive. In terms of their technical ability, their awareness, certain skill sets, and you want to do more for them in terms of helping market them, promote them, connect them to different clubs, what have you. And a lot of them have the desire to play football outside of where they are or where you've seen them. But circumstances, things like having to have a job and having family responsibilities, things like that always gets in the way. At what age do you think, as a coach, and I'm using the term scout very, very loosely, should you now separate yourself from trying to push that player into a next level? I don't know if the question making sense, but it's just that these guys have so much quality that you want more for them, all right? And they indicate that they want to do more or want to go further, but based on whatever limitations they may express, it's a challenge. How much of your time and resources should you invest in trying to push a player who's already 19, 20, 21 into a higher level or another level of football?
That's a great question, Jason. You want to get them in an environment where they're going to develop. So obviously it's a safe environment and where the level of coaching is appropriate to their age group. So if it's just a community team, maybe they need to get to something a little more advanced, maybe a Super League team, maybe a zonal team, maybe a professional team, and really have them test their skills in that environment. So you want to get them to a more advanced environment once they're showing that potential.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, it's okay. I just want to kind of extend the question a little bit. Now, when you get them into a Super League team or a zonal team, do you leave them there and hope that their progress at that level will push them forward? Or do you take, or should you take a more personal role in terms of trying to continue to do personal work with them? Or do you think you should, once they get to a certain age, you should separate yourself from that?
I think you should separate yourself. And once they get into a very good environment where they're developing, then it's like the primary school teacher wanting to go with the kids in the secondary schools to teach them. You want them to get into an environment where obviously you can always learn, you can always do personal sessions and so, but once they get into an environment where the environment is productive, then that's the environment they need to be. They need to be in that environment and need to be developing. So obviously you have to choose the right environment where the player is benefiting and the player continues to develop and hopefully fulfill his or her potential.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
No, you're most welcome. Guys, thank you very, very, very much. It's an absolute pleasure. You know, it's a lot of work to get these things going, but we're really happy that you guys are happy. And we're going to bring some other clubs on, right? And we have some other seminars lined up, you know, so look forward to it. We're very, very glad to have you. So keep your questions in the chat. And what I'll do is I'll get the questions to Coach Dean, and we'll get them back out to you guys as soon as possible. All right, so thanks a lot, everybody. Really, really happy to have you. Have a great and wonderful afternoon.